So using CellGen Substance in Maya, there's some key things to know. It's very important to use the latest plugin from Algorithmic. And once you've loaded this plugin in, it's important to use the custom network and not the Stingray or Classic for the Redshift workflow. And these settings, like this custom network, get forgotten when Maya is closed or when a new shader node is made. So you need to go back in and reset your settings to custom when you're generating these maps and before you generate them. And also need to reset your automatic connections. It defaults back to none, and it defaults, I believe, to JPEG. So if you want to use, example, if you're going to be using a render farm and you need to have these in a common location, after you've reset all this, to come up here and then hit the reload button and open up your source images folder, and you note the time that your files are being created, so you know that this whole network is all running for you. There's a bunch of presets that you can use with Maya that I saved for you to download, and it seems that Maya struggles with these presets. So if I was to change to say this preset here and say replace, and then look in my source images folder, we can see that these maps are continuously getting updated and re-updated over and over again. So it takes a little while for the preset to cycle through all the different parameters. What we'll do is we'll start with from scratch here just to show this whole process. I'm going to go to our Redshift shader. We'll just do our Redshift material. We'll also do our Redshift utility. And we'll get our bump map, which goes down here, and our displacement. Okay, so here's all of our Redshift nodes. And our bump map goes into our bump, and our displacement goes into our displacement. I'm going to set this just to plastic to start with. Next, we want to load in our substance. So we're going to create our 2D node and scroll down to our substance right here. Now, this has created our substance node, and our textures right here. And as I mentioned before, this defaults to the Stingray, and you're going to want to use custom before you even browse to the substance file. And for your automatic baking, so you want to turn that on. When you open up a new scene file, it's on none JPEG. So once all these guys are set to the right settings, we're going to browse to the substance file. And it's recommended you save this in your, so here it is. We're going to open it up. And sometimes, even though you've opened it and you've browsed to it, it's just not appearing. So hitting the reload button will refresh the network. So we're seeing that we have our cells substance here, but we're not getting any of our output channels. So let's just try it again. Okay, clicking on and off of it. Guess it took a little while to load. Now we're seeing these channels. And if you don't see these, no matter what you do, it's most likely because you're using the plugin that came with Maya and not the latest version of the Algorithmic plugin. So then just go to Algorithmic and download the latest Maya plugin and reload it, and you'll get these different channels you can output. So the next step here is we're going to make our connections. We're going to generate our PNG files by clicking these buttons, and it's going to set up our connections to each of these. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the base color. I've heard it's best to use the bump map instead of the normal with this substance, so I don't use the normal in Maya, I just use the bump. Next one is the roughness. And we're going to use a height for our displacement, opacity, emissive, our bump, and I don't use metallic in Maya. So now we've generated out all of our texture files here. We can check in here that they've been generated and they're PNG files and the creation time is correct. So we've made these connections. And here's our substance file. So if we zoom in a little bit here, you can see all these different PNG nodes. And here's our intermediary node that's interpreting what the substance generator is telling Maya to make. And then it's creating this this PNG file. Just to tidy up my graph, I like to collapse down these nodes and then give myself a little extra room to connect all these things to each other. So here's our roughness, and this one is unique in that it needs the out alpha, the grayscale, instead of the color, or else it won't connect. So using the alpha, we're going to go into our reflection roughness and collapse our window to save space. Here's our emissive, out color, emission. Here's our bump. Now, when I made the material, I put these bump nodes down here so we could line them up. And here it is. The out color goes to the input, and we've already connected this to our bump input. Here's our opacity. Our base color. And we can see what we're missing here, which is our displacement. Now we have our nice little tidy graph in Maya. And here's our material. And we're going to assign it to this model here. The next thing you need to check with the model is that your displacement settings are correct. So by selecting the model, going into our Redshift tab, I've already set this up. I've enabled the subdivisions, brought them down a little bit because this model's pretty subdivided already. And I've adjusted the displacement height settings here. So let's do a quick Redshift preview here. What we're going to see is our tiling isn't right. So going back into our graph, here's our place texture, and we're going to give it a repetition of 7 and 7. And now we're seeing our substance resolving. And this is using displacement. The graphics card's pretty old. It's not even a GeForce card, but Redshift is doing pretty well anyways. Something else that's important to take note of is in our model settings here, and under our displacement, the auto bump mapping is normally on by default, and this can give like stepping in the gradations. So this, I go in and I kind of see if it's working, and if it's working okay, I leave it on. But if I'm getting those stepping in the gradations and everything like that, then I'll turn it off. Now another handy use for the CellGen is for doing vessels with endothelial cells. And so here's our vessel. We're going to have to change our tiling parameters for this. Just for now, I'll delete the background shape so we can see this a little better. Nice thing about Redshift is it's so responsive. We can really dial in these settings pretty quick. I'm gonna duplicate this guy, namer of nodes, and go into our modeling, reverse our normals. And so here we're getting our thickness of our endothelial cells down here. And that's about it for the Maya setup.